Joining us today is a person who has followed God's calling in her life and who is now the General Secretary of the National Assembly of the Uniting Church in Australia, Colleen Geyer. Welcome to see you, Colleen.
Thanks very much.
Colleen, you've been involved in a number of roles in the Uniting Church, chiefly, I suppose, in Queensland, where you came. What were you doing in Queensland?
Well, before I started work here in Sydney as the Assembly's General Secretary, I was working in the community services of the Uniting Church, both with Blue Care and Uniting Care Queensland. And for 10 years, I had the great privilege of working in that part of the Uniting Church and the amazing work that our community services do to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, we've shared with Jeff Batkin and people from Queensland previously. And what did you get most out of that work?
I think it was the everyday practical application of God's love in action. And it never failed to surprise me or to encourage me that this is what God's church was really on about in making a difference in these people's lives.
So what was it that kind of guided you, led you, or perhaps drove you to offer yourself for this new role, which is very different, isn't it?
Yes, it is very different, but it is still about the Uniting Church's work in communities wherever they are. And I guess throughout my whole life, I've sought to be where God wants me to be. You know, as a young woman, I did make a public profession of faith, and from that time, it's really been seeking after what God wanted me to do with my life for God. And again, with thinking about the opportunity that had been spoken about to me about the General Secretary's job, it was again finding the spaces to be in prayer and to discern whether this was what God was calling me to do.
And when you take on a role like that, it takes some time to arrive, doesn't it? You know, you've got a lot of reading, learning, meeting, travelling. And has that been some of your experience over these last 7-8 months?
Yes, definitely. I've done a lot of that, and any new role means that you have to get used to it, doesn't it? And I've had to do that. And with a national role, of course, there's a lot of thinking about and learning about what's happening nationally in the Uniting Church and what do I have to get my head around. And then what are the relationships that are really important to build and to get, an understanding about what's there. But it's been a joy, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of it as well.
At both government level, community services level, and in so many ways, things today are about partnerships, not just about the kind of it's me and it's about...
Right.
Is that a major part of the role that you're actually involved in?
It definitely is. And as you say, there's different parts of the national work of the Uniting Church that does do those partnerships with government, with other community services, much like your own, Keith, at Wesley Mission. But also in the Uniting Church, I think, we're looking to what can we do together right across the Uniting Church. Yeah. And so to understand what's happening in the different places and how we can work better together, always for the goal of what we can do to be God's love in the world and in action.
And it's a challenge in Australia. We have different railway lines and different, and I think the sheer size of the country is a bit of a challenge as well, isn't it?
It certainly is. And when you think about that, you have to think differently about how you do your work, and what are the, as you say, what are the challenges that we have to think about and overcome? But what are the possibilities and potentials for what we can achieve together? And so that is very exciting. When I think about the Uniting Church's work in remote areas of Australia and how that has been such an important thing for us to continue, not only by groups like Frontier Services, but also our agencies as well, and that's important.
Let me just build on that and talk about the Aboriginal and Indigenous work, which is so important. One of my predecessors, Alan, talked about the Uniting Church being the first kind of Australian church, truly Australian church. Yeah. This is an important part of what we do, isn't it?
It certainly is. And it was about 30 years ago now that we worked with the First Peoples members of our church to set up what was the autonomous ministry of the Uniting Church, the Uniting Aboriginal and Islander Christian Congress. And that work is very important to think about how we are part of reconciliation for First Peoples in Australia. And of course, then we amended our preamble to our constitution to recognise some of the injustices that have been done to First Peoples as well. One of the ways that practically we're thinking about it at the moment is working with the Mapoon community up in Weipa in North Queensland. And the community there were part of a forced resettlement by the Queensland government, and the church there was demolished. And they've asked the Uniting Church to help them rebuild the church, and so we're happy to do that with them.
Well, that's really a statement, isn't it, about how they see us as well.
Yes.
And I don't understand anybody who's not prepared to see the wrongs of the past and start... I mean, it's just natural,
We can't not see that and
One
not
of your
make a
big
difference.
words is the word hope. So, in a nutshell, how do you see the message of hope?
Well, I think the Christian church's message has always been about hope. You know, the gospel message of Jesus was all about offering hope to the people he came in contact with, as is the good news of his life and, you know, death and resurrection, and what that salvation story tells us. So for me, in a world that sometimes we see as quite dark, as quite full of grief and sadness and loss, I think as a church we've got a responsibility to be bearers of hope, if you like, and to offer that light into the world.
Well, we really want to follow your ministry and work in the Uniting Church and wish you every blessing on that work as you become not only a bearer of hope, but a light of hope and symbol of hope yourself. God bless you, Colleen.
Thanks so much, Keith.